welcome back to this fine Tuesday morning on Crypto. Oh my God, we're going to dive into a little bit of technical conversation around zero-knowledge proofs, a project called Succinct Labs, and the scaling of the Ethereum network, which I think is something we can all agree is rather necessary. Let's just dive right into it. Bam! So today I'm looking at Succinct Labs. What they are doing is building a ZK prover network. Now, what the hell does that mean? ZK means zero knowledge. Prover network is just really a way to prove that things are valid in a blockchain ecosystem, or really in any ecosystem. Now, one thing we would want to prove is valid in blockchain specifically, Ethereum specifically in this context, will be, is a block valid or not? As it currently stands, the way that Ethereum works is that we have a block builder who is typically a sophisticated actor outside of Ethereum. They construct a block from transactions in the public mempool and private order flow, and they submit them to the block's proposer. The proposer then forwards the block to attesters, who are the other validators in the committee. The attesters gossip to each other, re-execute the transactions in the block, and check for validity, and vote that the block and its data is valid. If the majority of attestations are received in time, the block is included. If not, the block is ignored or reorged. So what we are seeing is that every transaction that goes into a block from a proposer, they are racing to submit the vote in an L2. This could be a single sequencer. But what's happening here is that all those transactions are being re-expressed. The attesters and the nodes in the networks, they're running the transaction on the VM and saying, yes, that is indeed the appropriate outcome. When they come to an agreement, after doing all of this redundant work, a block gets included and the chain moves on. Now, the concept here is that we can actually scale this process by removing the redundancies of having to run these transactions over and over again. What we are going to get via a ZK network is a prover who says, hey, look, I ran these transactions, and they can do it off chain on a beefy machine, right? On something a little bit more centralized, but say, hey, I ran these transactions and I have output this proof, this mathematical zero knowledge proof, that if you can prove that this is correct, we can also unpack that the transactions underneath it are correct. The prover network sends that out into the world, and they quickly validate that, yes, this single mathematical proof is indeed valid. That means every transaction underneath it is also valid. What we are doing is taking the heavy work of running every transaction inside that block. We're outsourcing it to a bigger, beefier machine, something with a heavier GPU. Then it makes a much more simplified proof that can be run and verified by a variety of attesters. Now, with a ZK network, we can see if Ethereum's to integrate real-time proving into its roadmap, meaning that we just know that these transactions are valid, Ethereum contracts an individual prover to do all of its proof generation. This is centralized software as a service model. Like we said, a single machine running the proof that all of these transactions are valid. Ethereum requires proving infrastructure to be cheap and energy efficient enough to support real-time proving at home. It enshrines heavy node to do this proving in protocol. Ethereum makes use of decentralized provers that can surface a competitive, reliable set of provers with free market competition and scales to outsource proofs and implementing a proposer-prover separation. Now, this is a very fun blog coming from the Ethereum Magicians. They're a group that supports Ethereum and really covers a lot of the scaling and the magic going on. This is scaling the L1 to gigagas with real-time proving, and that's what they're talking about. Now, Succinct is working on this, and I'm just going to lean on ChatGPT for a very easy description of what zero knowledge kind of looks like. And here, let's imagine a cave. Let's use a classic story to explain it. One, there's a cave that's shaped like a loop with a locked door at the back. You, the prover, know the secret word that opens the door. 3, I, the verifier, want to know that you really know the word without learning myself. So here's how you prove it to me. You go into the cave, you pick either left or right. Remember, they circle back to the door. I wait outside, and then I ask you to come out of a specific side. If you know the magic word, you can open the door inside and come out from either side as I ask. If you don't know, you can only come out the same side that you entered, right? Pretty simple concept. If we repeat this enough times and you never mess up, I become confident that you must know the word without ever hearing it. Now, this is so valuable. You've heard me talk about KYC, all the information that we give to a variety of companies. I mean, in a single credit card swipe, you're revealing loads of your data to these companies, and these companies continue to get exploited. And that's how we have all of this spam in our emails and everyone that knows our phone numbers and pings us every dang day. And really, we just want to know with KYC, are you 21 or over to buy alcohol? Are you 18 or over to view adult content? Are you the actual resident of XYZ state? I mean, these things we give our entire data set for really just one verification. And this is where we need to begin to separate our identifiers from our identity, because when we give our entire identity over for one identifier and the entire thing gets exploited, it becomes extremely problematic and we enter a world of spam and scams. And that is just dangerous to everyone. Now, Succinct has went live pretty recently with their prover network, and we can actually see it running across the globe. This is extremely important because we do want that decentralization. If we're going to have one central machine that's pumping out these proofs, we want as many provers globally distributed to actually run these things, to say that yes, what that centralized machine is outputting is indeed correct. And we can see over here on the left, right, we have new requests just coming in. Again, these are requests to say, hey, we need a specific piece of information. And the prover says, okay, here is a mathematical proof that attests that this is indeed true. And these machines, they run it quickly and they say, yeah, we come into an agreement. This is the way that zero knowledge works. And it's an extremely useful tool for maintaining privacy and for scaling up the speed at which a blockchain operates. So very, very fun. And it's cool that we can actually see the flow of information. I mean, Succinct has done an excellent job at setting up data for anyone curious. I also highly recommend that if you're interested in what's going on, I mean, their blog under the Succinct Labs, blog.succinctxyz, there's so many interesting integrations. I mean, they're just crushing it, right? Succinct and Hibachi, Succinct powers flagship Katana, Succinct acceleration with AntChain Open Labs. SP1 is Bitcoin ready, the era of ZK on Bitcoin. I mean, they're applying this scaling technology all over the place, to cross-chain bridges, to an Ethereum L2 that is basically proving the transactions in real time. And what that means is that we can get faster executions, we can pay cheaper gas, and basically make Ethereum feel a lot like Solana with the security guarantees that come from the network. So it's all quite exciting if you're an ETH head. And what becomes really cool is that we can actually expand the entire L2 ecosystem to feel a lot like Solana feels, like one unified world. Now, this happens through something called intents. Intents is a scaling mechanism where anybody can publish their intent to say, do a trade. I would like to swap one Ethereum for a bunch of Aave, and your intent is published to the network. Any bot can pick that up and fulfill it to say, hey, I have Aave and I would like to swap it with you for your ETH. Now, we can publish those intents to the network with the security of zero knowledge. People don't need to know exactly what the intent is, right? The information of Ethereum being swapped to Aave, we can just have people prove and say, hey, look, there's a bot on the other side that likes to do arbitrage, that moves coins between networks in order to try to capture a tiny bit of value from it. Or MEV, which is saying, hey, I can arrange the blocks in a certain way that maybe I'll trade that ETH for Aave for you, but I'll position it in a way, putting one of my trades ahead that actually benefits me as a user. There's a bunch of ways to scale the intents and the network in order to provide value on both ends, and it will actually accrue revenue to the people in the middle. So as a world of AI opens up, they will be looking and reading and scanning these intents and fulfilling the orders, whether those be application demands, token swaps, anything on that nature, proof of a block, right? And what is fun is that Succinct has opened this up to something called vApps, verifiable applications at internet scale. And the fundamentals here, I do recommend, it's a very good read, is that app development is just, it's not in a great place right now. If you're going to build an application that interacts with the Ethereum virtual machine, the EVM, you need to do it on Ethereum's native language. It's called Solidity. It's a very difficult language. It has a lot of logical flaws that you're capable of making. Again, a lot of times when apps get exploited, it's because of the logic of the writing, and that's often in Solidity. Now, app developers use something called Rust. It's just a much easier language. It compiles down to native C, C++. I mean, it's just a really easy way to make apps. And many of the mobile apps these days are built on Rust. So what this cool ZK software development kit really coming from Succinct allows people to do is to build applications in the same way they would normally. But if they want to verify something like, do you have, an ETH in your wallet? Are you KYC to transact a security token? Are you 21 or older, right? Do you meet the criteria to execute, let's just say, a sports betting trade? Well, people can now build apps in the same way that they would for a mobile phone, but when it needs that verifiability of the financial internet blockchain, like Ethereum, it can easily ping that data from the reliable source of truth. Remember, blockchains are the truth layer of the internet. When people say there's no good use case for these things, we have to look at AI scaling. We have to look at disinformation. We have to look at the exploits that are happening with our data all the time. And we have to just look at the fact that information enters the internet and it becomes adjusted, it becomes bent and twisted, and we don't know what's real or not anymore. We need a ledger that keeps track of data, how it moved through the web, when it was manipulated, when it was adjusted, and where its source of origination came from. This is all extremely important. This ties back into ownership, right? And blockchain is digital ownership. We often think of it as ownership of assets, but we also need an ownership layer of data. So Succinct is coming out with these things called verifiable applications. They allow anyone to build an app. It's going to look and feel like an application would on mobile, but it can ping the Ethereum network for that secure layer of data access, whether that be transferring value, transferring information, and we can start to see that our data is also value. I like to talk about the blurring of how we think about money and how we think about data. And really, these are all going to smush together. I don't think the kids of tomorrow are going to look at money and information so differently. The same way we have become accustomed to information on the internet and the digital transferal, right? We're no longer thinking about emails as akin to snail mail and post delivery. We now think of it as this fluid data layer that we can look at for brain rot content, that for the latest and greatest for the weather, we can pull up all of these things. And if we want to verify, that weather inputs from distributed devices like a DPIN network are indeed accurate, right? If we're defunding Noia, maybe we need to rely on our neighbors to set up little bits of hardware, and we can get a decentralized network that tells us, hey, maybe a hurricane is on the way. There's all sorts of things that we'll learn from micro data collected en masse that an AI can actually pull out and extrapolate a really new and novel outcome. So maybe we don't need to rely on the government structures as much. Maybe all of this technology and these prover networks allow us to create these communally enforced data sets. And the problem previously would be, well, you just don't know if that data coming in is real, right? How do we know if I try to create one of these networks that it's not just Russia lying to me because they want my town to be flooded like what recently happened? These things are real. In the flood that hit North Carolina years ago in Appalachia from the hurricane, the roads and the maps were all down, but HiveMapper on Solana, which uses people with cameras in their cars to record and update in real time a map, that was up and running. So while GPS couldn't tell you, oh, this road doesn't work because there's trees down all over it, we saw that HiveMapper actually had an up-to-date and reliable map for these people in a crisis situation. So this is all very real. Even though I like to talk in hypotheticals and ideas, these things are amazing. And we do want to know, especially in a crisis situation, is the data coming in reliable for us? Is it true? So all of this is really exciting technology. ZK has probably received some of the biggest funding boost of anything from the cryptocurrency ecosystem. We funded a lot of ZK competition, but it is going to be something that is extremely useful. It's extremely useful for scaling blockchains, which is why we focused a lot on it. But this will allow Ethereum to sort of move and flow seamlessly because the bridges that connect the different L2s will be able to prove in real time that these assets are there. They won't need to custody assets on each side of the bridge. They can use intents just to say, hey, I want to move an asset from L2A to L2B, and I can prove that he has these assets. I can prove that the person on the other side of the bridge has the assets, and boom, swap. This will all happen in real time. It'll make the liquidity feel seamless. It will create this composable ecosystem, which is what Solana says is its edge, right? Solana is a horizontal L1. Everything can compose inside of it. Ethereum kind of fractured that. And now we have this fragmented liquidity problem of all the L2s. But the L2s can scale because they don't need to be as secure as the Ethereum L1, so they can do the trilemma trade-off, which is speed, cost, and security. And they can say, screw the security, we're going to rely on the Ethereum L1, we're just going for speed and cost reduction. And again, what they do is they run thousands of transactions into a blob, and those could be, again, image capture, that could be video content packets, all sorts of things. And they can keep that on an application-specific L2, let's just say an L2 that just handles streaming video super well, and at the end of the day can compile that into a block, put one hash on the Ethereum L1 blockchain, which means, historically speaking, anyone can go back and prove that, yes, that did happen. Now, all of this is coming together. We're scaling Ethereum in an amazing way. We're unlocking the ability to create these Web 2 apps that can ping the reliability and the truth layer that is blockchain, and it's a really exciting time. So I highly recommend that you get in here. Succinct has so much good content. Obviously, their browser, their Explorer here, super cool and interactive. But man, their blog, I mean, just hop in here if you're curious, because they're doing an amazing job at kind of keeping everybody up to date as to what's going on here. And ZK was something that was far out, that was in the future, but they have gone live on mainnet. We can see it happening here. It is a very real thing now. So this is all super exciting, something that you should dive into more. If you want to look up on YouTube, there's some great explanations around zero knowledge where they kind of run like an Eli 5 demonstration of it. It's a crazy concept, but once you grok it, you realize that this is the future we need to be moving towards. We cannot keep having these exploits and these data breaches that ruin our lives day after day. We need to abstract away so much of the data, yet be able to prove things as true. With that being said, I hope this was interesting for you. Please do take a dive. It's in my sources. Give me a like or a sub. Like, it means the world to me. And as always, stay safe, and I'll see you tomorrow.